right, friends, and welcome back to Journey Church's Teacher Talk.
Hey.
Steph and Sean here with you in Max Anders' 30 Days to Understanding the Bible. We are in chapter 12, the silence era. Silence. God goes quiet after for 400 years.
Yeah, man.
400 years, no widespread revelation.
I know, can you imagine? Like, I go like a week and I'm like, what is he saying? I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I just can't hear him.
God's gone
like,
quiet. He hasn't talked to me in 2 days.
400 years. That's crazy.
It's a long time. It's
Yeah.
a long time. I mean, we've barely been around 400 years in America.
Right.
My goodness, depending on how you look at our own history. So, so 400 years, no direct voicing. Now, we do know there has to be some movement happening, because you've got, when Matthew's gospel gets written, he's recording people like Anna, Simeon.
Right.
So there must have been some people, at least on an individual level, who were hearing quiet things. But by and large, we don't have a strong prophetic voice. We don't have a strong movement of the Spirit. We don't have like widespread, visions or dreams or things happening from God that are kind of giving us a hint as to how He wants to direct the course of our lives and the course of Israel. So, yeah, a lot of quiet.
Yeah, it's an interesting period because we see the transition from Persian rule. We still have a lot of Greek influence, and then Rome comes and kind of takes over this area and sets up, a big change in structure, politically, and even just technologically, we see a lot of changes.
No question.
We've got some political sects that start to develop. And then we also see the development of some religious sects. So we have, the Pharisees, who were very orthodox and conservative. They liked to separate themselves from secular society, right? But then we had the Sadducees. They were more liberal. They used their wealth and influence to influence things politically as well. And, I think we tend to group these two groups together, right? Like good guys and bad guys, right?
They were just all the bad guys.
Yeah, but really they agreed on almost nothing except their antagonism towards Jesus.
Yeah, so the real Jesus comes on the scene, the one they say they would follow, and don't even have a clue once he arrives. I thought this was interesting in the summary statement that Max gives. He says, Pharisees and others entomb the Israelites in legalism for the next 400 years. Entomb.
Yeah,
like
that's a strong word.
Dead in the nation and put them in a tomb, through legalism and through all of this external control, and meet this standard that no one can meet.
Right.
And so I think it's very telling, that kind of language. And actually leads me to the point I like to make whenever I'm kind of teaching or preaching on the teacher ministry within the fivefold ministry. I like to say that teachers left to their own devices become Pharisees. Because if we don't have the balance of evangelists and pastors and prophets and apostles, then we get very like letter of the law, like specific. We just all the dots and tittles, all the things, and we largely end up losing sight of the larger picture of all that God wants to do in our lives.
Yeah.
So just some very interesting, almost warnings, in the silence era.
I do think it's interesting that even though God was silent, He was still working to prepare.
Right.
There were a lot of things that the Roman government brought to the area that really paved the way for Jesus and His disciples' ministry afterwards.
No question.
They finally had a more developed common language that many people, at least some core languages that a lot of people spoke. They also brought roads and infrastructure and sea travel, and as well as some military peace that enabled them to be able to travel far distances. So even in that silence, He's still setting up this season of preparation for what was to come.
So Steph, you're saying that God will use secular things to set up His purpose?
What?
I can't believe that.
Oh my goodness.
Madness. Yeah, so friends, dig into this. So don't bypass this chapter, even though technically there's not a lot biblically there for us to actually read. But it's important for us to understand this kind of chasm of distance that happens between, Malachi writing his last words, or the temple being rebuilt, and then then there's this kind of vacuum of space, and not a lot spiritual is happening until John the Baptist comes on the scene.
Hey.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today, guys. May you delight in his face as you delight in his word.
See ya.